She hadn't even blinked before the finger hit her nose. "Get off the plane now!" the flight attendant barked, her voice slicing through the air like broken glass. Two young black girls, dressed in neat yellow polos and pastel backpacks, froze at the entrance of the aircraft. The elder twin, by just 3 minutes, clutched her phone tighter to her ear, her small brown fingers trembling. Her sister looked up, eyes wide, lips pressed in fear. Neither said a word, but their expressions said it all. They were scared, confused, and alone. Before we continue, if you are watching our video for the first time, please bless and support us by hitting that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell to get notified for more, share to friends. Where are you watching from? Please tell us in the comments. We love seeing how far our story goes. And to our returning viewers and our 200+ subscribers, thank you for being part of our growth. We see you. We appreciate you. The airport terminal had been buzzing like a hive, but everything seemed to pause the moment the flight attendant raised her voice. Her pristine navy uniform looked more like armor now, and her sharp-toned, snapped eyes in her direction. "I said get off. This isn't your flight," she barked again. The girl with the phone held it closer and whispered, "Daddy, she's yelling at us. She won't let us on the plane." "Put her on the phone," came the voice from the other end, calm but firm. A voice that did not belong to just a regular father. But the flight attendant had had enough. She reached out and snatched the phone from the child's hand. "Who do you think you are?" she hissed into the receiver. "I don't care who you are. These two are not boarding without proper." She paused. Then her face shifted, slightly. Her jaw clenched, and for a second, her mouth moved but no words came out. Slowly, she handed the phone back without another word, turned sharply, and walked into the aircraft without so much as looking at the twins. Let's rewind. It started earlier that morning at Boston International. The twin girls, Madison and Morgan, were traveling unaccompanied for the first time. Their father, Kendrick Brooks, was the CEO of Aero Global Airlines, but he didn't believe in pampering his daughters with security entourages. They were flying commercial, not private, to teach them responsibility. What he didn't count on was prejudice. They had their paperwork, their IDs, their bright yellow school bags, and their innocent smiles. But what they didn't have was a face that the gate agent respected. That was the start of the storm. At the gate, they were met by flight attendant Denise Holbrook, a seasoned staff member with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She looked at them like they had wandered into first class by mistake. "You two are flying alone?" she asked, frowning. "Yes, ma'am," Morgan replied politely. "Without an escort? Where are your parents?" "In New York. We have our unaccompanied minor papers," Madison said, holding them out. Denise didn't take them. Instead, she leaned down, close, her voice cold. "You sure you're on the right flight?" "Yes, ma'am," they said again. She sighed and waved them forward. But just as they reached the aircraft door, she snapped. "Stop." They turned. "Where do you think you're going?" "Boarding." She stepped forward, blocking the entrance. "I don't think so." That's when the yelling started. Inside the plane, passengers turned to see what the fuss was. A middle-aged woman by the window frowned. "What's the holdup?" she asked. A young man, too, rose up, started recording with his phone. Back at the terminal, a man named Thomas, an off-duty pilot in civilian clothes, recognized the twins. He remembered their faces from the CEO's family newsletter. His instincts kicked in, and he approached the scene, staying just far enough to observe. Meanwhile, Kendrick Brooks was in a boardroom, mid-presentation. His phone buzzed once, then again, and then again. He ignored it until the fourth buzz. It was Madison's number. He excused himself, answered, and what he heard turned his entire morning upside down. A flight attendant was yelling at his daughters. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't panic. He simply asked to speak with the woman. And when she got on the line and dismissed him rudely, he said just one sentence. "Please tell your captain to step out before you take off." "I'll wait." She rolled her eyes and handed the phone to the captain when he arrived. The captain listened. His face changed. He glanced at the twins. Then he whispered something to a flight marshal nearby. The next 5 minutes were chaos. The boarding bridge pulled back. The jet started taxiing. But it stopped before it reached the runway. Inside the control tower, someone had activated a rare protocol called Red Flag Halt. Only a handful of people in the country had the authority to do that. Kendrick Brooks was one of them. The airport lights flickered. Runways were cleared. Other flights were told to delay. Inside the aircraft, passengers were told to return to the gate. Confusion spread like wildfire. Back at the terminal, Morgan whispered. Daddy said don't be afraid. Just stay calm. A luxury black SUV with tinted windows pulled up near the gate. Out stepped Kendrick Brooks, 6 feet 3 inches, well-dressed, eyes calm but piercing. Behind him were 3 members of the airline's board and 2 federal aviation officials. He walked straight to the gate, nodded once, and said, "Where are my daughters?" Madison and Morgan ran into his arms. He turned calmly to the gate agent and asked, "Where is she?" Denise was being escorted off the plane. Passengers watched as she was led out in disbelief, her mouth opening and closing without defense. A group of flight attendants nearby whispered nervously. One of them began deleting videos from her phone. Kendrick didn't shout. He never raised his voice. But when he addressed the passengers, people listened. "I want to thank everyone for their patience," he said into the PA. "But what happened today should never happen to any child, regardless of their background, race, or appearance. We trust airline staff with our lives in the sky. We must also trust them to treat every passenger with dignity on the ground." He turned to his daughters. "You were brave. You stayed calm. And you remembered what we taught you, to always speak up, no matter who is in front of you." The story exploded online within minutes. #Flightgate trended for 72 hours straight. The video of Denise yelling at the girls went viral. So did the footage of the girls quietly waiting, holding hands, while chaos unfolded behind them. Denise was fired within the day. But Kendrick didn't stop there. He announced a sweeping new protocol within Aero Global. Operation Equal Wings. Mandatory training for all flight and ground crew on racial sensitivity, child passenger protocol, and conflict de-escalation. No exceptions. Meanwhile, the twins made headlines across national media. But they didn't want fame. They wanted to go home. That night, Kendrick flew them privately back to New York, but not before holding one last press briefing. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about every child who's ever been spoken to like they don't matter. Every kid who was told they weren't good enough. Every parent who couldn't be there in that moment to protect their own. Let's make sure this never happens again." A week later, the airport launched a new campaign across all terminals. Faces of the Future. Large posters of Madison and Morgan, smiling, with the caption, "Every child deserves respect." The impact was immediate. Other airlines took notice. Training materials were updated across the industry. Passengers spoke up more often when witnessing injustice. More employees were held accountable. Kendrick didn't sue. He didn't call for boycott. He changed the system. And that, friends, is how 2 brave little girls reminded a billion-dollar industry of the importance of basic human decency. Moral lesson: prejudice, whether conscious or unconscious, destroys trust and erodes dignity. Sometimes it takes the calm bravery of a child and the wisdom of a parent to reset a broken system. Never let your authority make you forget the humanity of those you serve. This story was proudly presented by Elliott Stories. Catch you in the next one, because at Elliott Stories, we care.